めてくれ。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
この街で喧嘩売んならちゃんと相手を選べ。大金持ち歩いてるときは特にな。
Yakuza 0 was developed and published by Sega. Yakuza 0 was released on March 12, 2016 in Japan on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, and subsequently on January 24th in 2017 worldwide exclusively on the PlayStation 4. Yakuza 0 begins with a young Kazuma Kiryu walking the streets of 1988 Kamurocho contemplating the beating he just gave some poor guy. At the edge of the city, he meets up with his temporary employer. We find out that Kazuma Kiryu just did a job for a local loan shark for some extra cash. After receiving a small cut from what he just beat out of that poor man, he meets up with the man he considers his brother, Akira Nishikiyama. They poke some fun at each other and have a great night out. The night ends at a local ramen shop where Akira sees that there's been a murder in Kamurocho. When Kiryu turns to see who it is, he sees that it's the man he beat up only hours earlier. Kazuma Kiryu, knowing he's broken a sacred rule that a Yakuza shall never kill a civilian, he meets with the lieutenants of his family's organization in the Dojima family to see what's next. In this family, for such an error, the person who brought in the accused is also made accountable, meaning Kiryu's in trouble, but so is his adoptive father who's in prison at the time of Yakuza 0. In that meeting, he's told that the man was killed by a gunshot to the head, so Kiryu realizes that he's been framed. He's never had a gun. The lieutenants scoff at this realization, noting that Kazuma Kiryu is only a foot soldier and he's not important enough to care about, let alone frame. After some time alone with one of the lieutenants, Kuse, Kazuma Kiryu finds out that Kuse might know who the real killer is and that he might be involved only to dethrone Kazuma Kiryu's adoptive father from his high position within the family. Thus begins Kiryu's journey into finding allies that will help him fight the potential corruption of his own family and save his father's reputation.
ちょっと待ってください。それじゃ風間のおやっさんはどうなるのす。
さあな。だが組の一大事に無所にいるようじゃ頭は務まんねえだろ。おまけにだ。ガキの頃から育ててきた可愛い子分が理由はどうあれ仇をぶち殺しまったとあっちゃきっちりけじめつけねえと
な。おやっさんは関係ない。それで俺も殺しはやっていません。
そういうことは殺につってもヤクザの言い分聞くほど連中も暇じゃねえだろうな。殺には今日中に実しろよ。それと縁故詰めとけや。お前も極道なら組長に挨拶しとかねえと筋が通らねえぞ。
In another part of Japan, another man's journey is only just beginning as well. This side of the story starts with two men going to a local club that is famous in the area. As they order drinks with the girls from the club, they see a man causing trouble at a table below them. To stop any more trouble brewing, a man known as the manager walks out to take care of the problem. The manager reveals that the customer is the king and makes a mockery of the drunk client trying to fight him.
彼ってあの男か？ありゃただのケツ持ちだろ
お客様、
ん？
本日はお越しいただきありがとうございます。
なんやお前、ケツ持ちちゃうんか？
よく間違われます。ですが違います。
せやったらなんやねん悪い。
申し遅れました。私、当店支配人の真島と申します。
お前が支配人やと？
え？あれが例の？
この店はヤクザが仕切っとんのかい？
お見苦しくて申し訳ございません。こう見えても堅気です。それよりもお客様、恐れ入りますが、当店でのお触りや暴力行為はどうかご遠慮願います。
気に食わんちゅうんやったら力ずくで来てみろや。その面こき落としけ。
そういうわけには参りません。お客様は神様ですから。
As his employees drag the man out of the club, the manager pleads to the rest of the club and to the troublemaker himself not to let one night ruin a man's career, but to instead allow the man to buy everyone's rounds for the night. The two men above watch in amazement of how this famous manager basically turned a problem maker into a night of prosperity for everyone. You are Goro Majima. You are the manager. And regardless of how well of a job he's doing, we learn that running his extremely popular club is his punishment, and the city he's in is his jail cell. It isn't until a few nights later, after this spectacle in the club, where he's offered a chance to get out and rejoin the Yakuza life he longs for. He only has to kill one person. A man who has never killed before, in order to get the life he wants so bad, has to kill someone to get it. And that's the story of Yakuza 0, more or less. It's told through two people in two different cities, but there are a few elements from each story that affects the plot of the other. These elements really can't be controlled. The story is fixed, and it's up to you to connect the dots of how these elements fit in one another. What I love about this story is that it is way too well written for its own good. You play any Yakuza game and you will see the crazy amount of silliness in 1 hour of gameplay. But then when it comes down to the narrative, it's complex and it's well written. Yakuza 0 is no different. It has no reason to be as good as it is here. It's complex, it's interesting, it won't constantly keep you wondering, but it has its moments of drama and intrigue. This is also a prequel, so you don't really have to have played any of the other games to understand this one. At the same time, it also has Easter eggs for longtime fans of the series. Where the game is strong in narrative, the game does lack in characterization. Neither Kiryu or Majima are really built up. They don't change, except for Majima, until the very last moment, which makes it feel really rushed to force them into the mold they're in Yakuza 1. A small spoiler that makes no difference is that Kiryu's series famous suit doesn't appear until the very last cutscene, and his reason? I just like it. I'd have thought Majima would lose his mind little by little, that turns him into that maniac he's in the rest of the series, but it's not really shown either. I'd have thought there would be a far better reason for why Kiryu wears the suit that he wears, rather than just a last minute, I like it. Neither of these are a problem for a first comer to the series, nor are they incredibly important to the seasoned Yakuza fan. They were just opportunities they missed, but they didn't ruin the experience. The writing is difficult to describe just because Yakuza is primarily a Japanese game made by Japanese developers for Japanese players, it's only been localized for Western audiences. The culture within the game is still Japanese. The dialogue will come off simple sometimes. The treatment of women in video games today hasn't yet reached the level of equality, but you can tell the games that are evolving in terms of an attitude towards women. This game doesn't reflect that, with women always being someone you have to take care of, but considering the time period, I highly doubt today's views on feminism and equality can translate well into the 1980s, anywhere, even less in Japan. I also need to clarify that it's not evolved in this game, but the attitude towards women is nowhere near misogynistic like in Ride to Hell Retribution. However, the one time you do help a woman build her confidence up, it's to be a dominatrix. The organization is also pretty simple and effective. Kiryu's storyline is built up, and just as things get interesting, it'll shift right over to Majima's storyline and then repeat. So although it does sort of kill the excitement, it does make you want to keep playing to see what's next.
なんや。大丈夫や。もう大丈夫や。
店長は
心配すんな。奴も逃げた。すぐに会えるはずや。
本当に
ああ。
どうしてこんなことに。
Unfortunately, I didn't really get much from the writing at a deeper level. The visuals are magnificent for a port. The game was developed for the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 in Japan, so for us to just get the PlayStation 4 version, it looks great. It's nowhere near as magnificent and detailed as some recent games that were developed simply for the PS4, but it delivers. The atmosphere is awesome with the city's vibrant neon signs and overall color. Yakuza games have always had detailed worlds, and Yakuza 0 is no different, and if anything, it kicked it up a notch to really match the time period. A city with lights can be any city, but these two cities have a distinct look and feel to them, especially from one another, so it never feels like all they did was switch some assets around. The same goes for the characters in this game. Like every other Yakuza game, and can be seen as either a strength or a weakness, the main characters are extraordinarily detailed, while the NPCs copy and paste models. If you've seen 10 NPCs, you've seen them all. Yakuza 0 has a lot of close-ups on its main characters, and the detail is nothing short of amazing. They have moles and acne scars and folds in their neck fat, and it's incredible. The fact that someone on the developing team was like, I'm gonna design this, put this wrinkle on this guy's forehead, as well as I'm gonna take a whole day to put a mole right here and place these acne scars all over here. Little details like that go a long way, and most of these main characters look like they can easily be real people, with the exception of the two main characters, Majima and Kiryu. These two are almost idealized versions of a perfect Yakuza member, and while it might hurt our ability to relate to them, it does help with their character development throughout the series. Besides that, technically speaking, I didn't have any visual errors that impacted my gameplay. There was some screen tearing here and there when I ran around the city, especially at night when there's neon lights everywhere, but it was rare, and I only noticed them when I looked for them. The audio is very Yakuza, if that makes any sense. If you've played any other Yakuza game, you'll know what I mean. The Yakuza series has a standard for the audio part of the game, and Yakuza 0 meets that standard. The background music adapts to your location or activity. Soft jazz while you drink at a bar, and disco music when you dance at the club. In other Yakuza games, the fight music is always the same. You'll have that same old regular music when you fight regular people, and then you'll have a special song for when you fight a particular boss. In Yakuza 0, they kind of went the extra mile to also change the music when you change stances, which I thought was a nice little touch. It isn't enough to forget, but again, a small detail that is appreciated. As for the city, the ambiance is there. The Yakuza series perfected it way back in Yakuza 3, and there really hasn't been much room for improvement. You can hear people talking indistinctly, you can hear the buzzing of the lights, distant honking, the jingles and clanking of vending machines on the street. It's all there. Something else that really hasn't changed is the gameplay. If you've played another Yakuza game before, this one will be extremely easy to jump into. If you've never played a Yakuza game, the combat and controls are extremely easy to learn. If you learn it here, future installments will be easy to play as well. Easy to learn, easy to play, and easy to return to. The game is mostly a third-person action beat-em-up, and if you've played a beat-em-up, you know that the core of the game is to beat people up. In Yakuza 0, you will fight people on the streets and fight people during story missions. There's really nothing to it. Some people have argued that the fighting gets repetitive, and they aren't wrong. It does, and I have found myself avoiding fights on the street when I get sick of it. However, this is a natural inclination for me. Sometimes I feel like it, other times I don't. It isn't necessarily a bad thing to say the fighting gets repetitive, because if you're saying this, you obviously haven't played a Yakuza game in the past. If anything, they try to improve the fighting by giving you 3 different fighting styles for both characters, and you can use whichever you want at any given time and upgrade the fighting style you feel you use more. You can also use it strategically and change it up mid-battle if a certain style isn't working. The option of 3 different fighting styles is an attempt to improve the fighting in Yakuza games, and I think it really helped in Yakuza 0. So yeah, it might get repetitive, but if you're saying that's a bad thing, you haven't played a Yakuza game before, and at the very least, they try to improve on it and actually did a good job with the attempt. Like other Yakuza games, Yakuza 0 is absolutely massive. You might get bored of the fighting, sure, but you'll never get bored of all the things you can do in the 2 cities you're in. There are countless side stories, some of which are just so on the nose that you'll find yourself laughing.
Hey! Hey, man! Eh? Okay. Hey, man!
Yeah. Oi.
Hey! What? No. Oh. Oh.
You can also make friends with people that you encounter who will help you in some shape or form in the future. There are collectibles that allow you to watch, certain videos. You can train with specialists to upgrade a specific fighting style. You can go fishing. You can go to the arcade and play actual arcade games made by Sega. You can waste time on the UFO catcher. You can go drinking.
いらっしゃいませ。
さて、一丁決めてくるか。
You can go build a hostess club from the ground up, or take on the real estate by buying up parts of the city, or even bet on women's underground wrestling. There's a lot to say about Yakuza 0, but there's nothing to do will never be one of them. A difference this game has from the past is that you can no longer upgrade your abilities with experience points. Whereas all these activities would give you some experience points, they no longer do in Yakuza 0. Money rules the upgrading system now. Every impact you make on an enemy is money earned, and you use that money to literally invest in yourself. Gameplay wise, this is the only thing I really had a problem with. Yakuza 0 has a lot of things that are wacky and nonsensical, but literally investing in yourself is something else. It doesn't make much sense, and you'll find yourself at odds sometimes whether to upgrade or use that money to help you further the real estate side quest, or using that money to buy health items. In conclusion, Yakuza 0 is probably the best game in the series to date. It is fun to return to the series for fans and a perfect entry point for newcomers. It doesn't get any better to start a series than to do so with a proper prequel. This is the prequel the series deserves, and it delivered. I played Yakuza 3 and it was decent. I played Yakuza 4, which was my first ever Yakuza game, and I loved it. Yakuza 5 met that same bar, and I expected 0 to hit that bar. And you know what? Yakuza 0 didn't hit that bar. It went above it. I played this game back to back, with the first time rushing through the story to see what would happen next. Like when you binge watch your favorite Netflix show, you only put it down because you knew you had to wake up early the next day, but if you could, you'd sit there for a few more hours. The second time, I explored the corners of both cities with both characters, meeting strange characters and learning new stories that are so dumb they're enjoyable. So dumb that it doesn't make sense that the actual story of Yakuza 0 is actually intriguing and entertaining. Yeah, the characters may not have a lot of development, but this is a prequel to a PS2 game in the 2000s. They were first shown to the world as badasses. How many characters in the PS2 era had extensive character development? The visuals are great, the audio is great, and the gameplay is the absolute highlight of this game. I bought this at the last minute at a midnight release and managed to get the last copy that wasn't even reserved, and I got it for full price. I can easily say that I definitely recommend playing this game, or at least giving it a try. The game is definitely worth a try, at the very least. So for me, Yakuza 0 gets a 9 out of 10.
立花、そろそろ腹の中に隠してるもん見せろ。あんたはなぜこの俺に近づいてきた？その理由は何なんだ？
いいでしょう。ですがその前に、あなたはこのカムロ町という町を何と見ますか？
カムロ町？さあな、質問の意味がわかんねえ。
私はね、桐生さん、この町は堂島組をはじめとする登場界の餌場であると見ています。一晩中ネオンに彩られたこの町に集まる人や金、そこから溢れる甘い汁は全て登場界の極道たちに吸い上げられる。
何が言ってんだ？
登場界が力で光り輝かせるこの町に、私は風穴を開ける人間です。こんな風にね。
なんだと？
嘘だろ。
金は力。私は自分の力がこの先どこまで登場界に迫れるか試してみたい。